The Warriors have cemented themselves as the latest dynasty in a long history in the NBA, and Golden State has kept its core intact, that being, of course, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr. But one can argue that the organization has never seen this much change during its dynasty run. I mean, longtime GM Bob Myers stepped down, Mike Dunleavy Jr. stepped in, Jordan Poole is out, 12-time All-Star Chris Paul is in. You got all that? Well, here is what Steve Kerr had to say about his new point guard and starting lineup.
I really like Chris because he likes phone calls and not texts. So Chris is old school. He wants to talk, and we've had 4 or 5 great conversations this summer. We basically have 6 starters. I mean, the way I look at it, and only 5 can go each night. So I haven't decided yet what we're going to do. I want to see training camp. We're going to try different combinations and take a look. Obviously, all 6 guys are going to play a lot of minutes for us, but if this is going to work, then everybody has to embrace it, regardless of who's starting and who's not. It only works if the whole team buys in. And one thing I know about all of them is they want to win more than anything. They're an incredibly competitive group, and I'm very confident that we'll figure it out, and the guys will buy in and find a way.
Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins have little to no experience off the bench, right? While Klay, Dre, and Kevon Looney, they have the most reps. You can see on your screen here how many times they have started, how many times they've been a reserve. I just want to draw everyone's attention to the top there. Chris Paul, 1,214 starts, 0 coming off the bench. So back here with Zach, with Richard, with Perk. Rich, you played for 8 different teams. Mm-hmm. You started in 68.5% of your games. You've been a key player off the bench. You've been a key player as a starter. How important do you think are defined roles here?
Well, this is the thing. I like to round it up and say that I started 69% of my games in the NBA. And with that, the one thing that I learned is how you adjust. We've looked at multiple Hall of Famers in the past, let's say 5 to 7 years. Let's talk about Carmelo Anthony. Let's talk about Russell Westbrook. Guys that need to transition to extend their career. It doesn't mean that they're not great. It just means the situation that they're in. Now, Chris Paul is a starting point guard on 95% of the teams in this league. He's a starter on 98. With the Golden State Warriors and the way that they are formatted, it doesn't look like he is going to be the best fit for them all year long. And that's why that 0 number is a big number. Do I believe that at some point in time Chris Paul will come off the bench at least once or twice this year? Yes. Why? Because the Warriors, over the entire Steve Kerr era, has had multiple lineups for when they need it most. It doesn't matter if it's the Hampton 5, if it's the Death lineup. They have a different lineup for whatever their team needs, and it has been successful at a level that we have never seen before. Steve Kerr has been a master at that. So Looney, Chris Paul, it depends on who you're playing. It depends on what you got. But I think ultimately, as long as they're focused on winning a championship, they'll figure it out.
What do you think, Zach?
Who cares?
You don't care what Zach thinks?
Well, no, Perk, when you're going to say who cares.
You don't care what Zach thinks. That's rude.
Who cares who started? Who cares who started?
Well,
if it's about championships,
but that's
it's
question.
Who finished the game.
But
who cares?
But that's the question. That's who cares? Well, if nobody cares, then that's fine. But all indications right now are that Chris Paul maybe cares a little bit whether or not he starts.
Yeah, but so did Russell Westbrook. So did Carmelo Anthony. So did these guys that are in the latter third of their career.
Fair enough.
If you want to go play for a championship, if you got to give up something. That like whatever that is.
Absolutely. Sacrifice is a key piece of a championship. It's just a matter of who you're asking to do it. Right, Zach?
But to me, if it were me, I would bring Chris Paul off the bench just because the main reason I got him is to lift up the offense when Steph Curry rests, which has been a problem for like 10 years. They just can't score enough points in those minutes. That's what Chris Paul is there for. To maximize that, it makes more sense to bring him off the bench. I do think it's worth noting that Chris Paul version of the starting lineup is not the Hamptons 5. And by the way, I always hated that nickname. It's not the Death lineup. Those lineups were gigantic. Kevin Durant is 7 feet tall. Andre Iguodala is huge and one of the best perimeter defenders of all time. Harrison Barnes before Kevin Durant is like 6'8". Steph, Chris, Klay, Wiggins, Draymond is much smaller and much older than those lineups ever were, which is why we can talk about Chris Paul every show if we want. We can do it, and he's going to be important to their team. Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, as young guys that were the product, 2 of those 3 lottery picks that they got when they were down, and one of them, James Wiseman, is already gone. Those guys fit the death lineup bill. Those guys fit the size and the skill set, and it's going to be time, if the Warriors are going to win the championship and make the finals, and I think they can do both, it's time for those guys to contribute a little bit more, which is why I took special note of what Steve Kerr said about Kuminga yesterday and what a great summer he's had, how excited he is for him, because that situation got a little out of whack last playoffs when Kuminga wasn't playing and wasn't happy about it. And I think Steve's comments yesterday were a clear indication we've got to repair that and get something out of him this year.
And I spy a problem. Yes, we saw the Denver Nuggets win the championship last year and represent the Western Conference. But they lost Bruce Brown. They lost Jeff Green. And guess what the Lakers did? They added pieces, and they're going to be a problem, not only for the Western Conference, but for the rest of the league. What they were missing, a dynamic roller. The addition of Jackson Hayes. Look at the young fella, athleticism. Anthony Davis don't want to play the 5. He don't have to. And guess what? They got him for the low. And then they went out and they went got Christian Woods. Right? We talk about him. We talk about his versatility, being able to stretch the floor, being able to go out there any given night and put up 20 and 10. And then one of the most underrated, probably the most important offseason addition was Gabe Vincent. We saw what he did all postseason for the Miami Heat. Put him alongside Anthony Davis and LeBron James. It's going to be a problem. It is going to be a problem for the West and for the rest of the league. Rob Pelinka did his thing, and I see the Lakers' offseason moves being a huge problem for everybody.
Perk, thank you. My first
That's
part
what
is
I
just
spy.
that's how Perk feels about the Lakers, their offseason, who they added. But, Zach, I do want to get your input here. Do you think they did enough to contend with the Nuggets in really a loaded Western Conference?
Yeah, I didn't spy a prediction in that whole monologue. Did Perk predict that the Lakers are going to win the West at any point, or did he just rattle off all these great offseason signings? Perk, did I spy a prediction?
It's too early, Zach. It's too early. It's too early. It's too early.
Okay,
I said I spy a problem.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss spy. I didn't miss any spying. Compete with the Nuggets, absolutely. Perk is on point. The Lakers added just about every kind of skill that they needed. Austin Reeves is going to make another leap. The question, I think, is 2 things. Number 1, they didn't really address who's guarding Nikola Jokic, and maybe there just is no way to address that, and it doesn't matter, and you just have to do your best and switch up schemes and all that. The second thing on Anthony Davis playing power forward versus center is fascinating, because I think the way to at least test the Nuggets is to stretch their defense out as wide as possible, which means all the shooting you can muster around Reeves, LeBron, and AD, which would not mean Jackson Hayes or any kind of traditional center, giving Jokic a place to kind of chill near the rim on defense. The Lakers have the lineup flexibility to get there, but Anthony Davis is going to have to buy in to that vision, because I think they're going to need that card and play it heavily if they're going to be able to topple the Nuggets in a playoff series.
Zach, you said it perfectly. They have enough to get there. I actually think the Lakers have enough to win a championship. But a lot of times, in order to get there, you have to go and beat the champion. And so once you get there, look, when they beat the Denver Nuggets, and they weren't the Denver Nuggets in the bubble, but when they beat that team, you look at their bigs. They had Dwight Howard. They had JaVale McGee. They had Anthony Davis. They had big depth. Jackson Hayes is a great addition for 82 games. He might be a great addition for the first round. But against Jokic, I don't know if he is that player yet that can give them 20, 22, 25 minutes a night and just defend Jokic the way that needs to be done. So what does that mean? Like Zach said, it's going to be Anthony Davis versus Jokic. And in that battle, currently right now, I give it to Jokic. I give it 1.5 to Jokic, in the sense that as great as Anthony Davis was, there was another level that Jokic went on. So they have enough to get there, but it's still going to be Anthony Davis versus Jokic.
Well, it's 2 things, Richard. One, you know how hard it is to win back-to-back championships. Hell, it's hard to just reach the finals back-to-back. You understand that.
Done a couple times.
The Denver Nuggets lost 2 valuable pieces in Jeff Green and Bruce Brown. Okay, number 3. We all know this. You know this because you was in the locker room and you actually won a championship with him. LeBron James brings out the best in every player that he plays with. We saw how J.R. Smith, when he got to Cleveland, rose to the occasion. We saw what he did for Tristan Thompson. Hell, we saw what he did for you. So think about when he get in that locker room, when Jackson Hayes get in that locker room alongside LeBron James and LeBron takes him under his wing, it's going to be a completely different player, not just from on the court, but his professionalism, something that he needs. We're not going to dive into that. But you know, down in your heart, you want to sit on national television right now and actually pick the Lakers to come out of the West, but you scared to do it.
Well, you just did a full monologue and said, it's too early. It's too early. I'm not picking that yet, Zach, so don't try and put me
we're
in
going to get
I didn't want to pick it.
that position. I told you about that.
Of this match.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Take them down and try to wear, pull up long range. Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's NBA over here, feeling fun.